So it's always fun to be back in the Netherlands. So I think, I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but I spent 20 years of my life so far in California. So came back and I was like, maybe I should have brought some of the California weather here, but anyway. Okay, so yeah. So I'll keep it a little light because I wanted to reflect a little bit with you. So I think this discussion is about thoughts and it's about kind of some joint insights that we can get. So I thought, I just took the job running the Mendix team. I'm super excited about it, but it also gives you some time for reflection, right? So, and I thought I would reflect a little bit on kind of two topics. One is, what is the essence? What's the differentiation? And I think Luc briefly touched on this productivity, right? So ultimately what we try to do here as a team is try to improve productivity, right? And we do so through software. And I think at Mendix we have a contribution to this, but then there's also the reflection on what's next. So what's the future? So I'll kind of briefly talk about both topics. If the clicker works. Oh, there we go. So maybe starting with productivity, why does this actually matter, and what are we seeing out there in the industry? I think why productivity matters to me is because first of all it touches on people, but secondly it's an opportunity. And so if you think about kind of the trends that have happened in the software industry for the last, I'd say, 20 years or so. To me, the evolution, why productivity really matters, the evolution as a key essence to it has productivity, right? So whether it's new methodologies with the Agile framework, by the way, I'm one of these guys that started waterfall development, so don't laugh here, but so Agile development, DevOps, all the way to kind of new architecture patterns, it's really about our quest for productivity, right? And I think what is interesting though is, guess what? We haven't solved the problem just yet, which is good, job security. And I think what we see is that the essence of Mendix is it's still very much relevant. So meaning, how do we close the gap? So meaning, how do we close the gap between the business and IT? And how do we together actually create more productivity between the two of them, right? And as a matter of fact, I had to laugh a little bit. I was talking to a gentleman from ABN AMRO, and he said, actually, the chart for us is almost reversed now. So meaning, with low code being part of our landscape, we can actually develop quite quickly, but now the business is actually a bottleneck, which was a new insight for me. But the reality is I think the gap is still there, and I think we as a team here today, I think we should think about, okay, what's the essence here, and how can we actually together work on this gap? So therefore, if you think about Mendix, you think about low code, right? And I think the other big insight, which I learned over the last couple of weeks, I was talking to Gartner, is that when I started working together with the Mendix team, which was in 2016, low code was kind of a sideshow. It was kind of productivity apps on the side. You wouldn't really use it for kind of enterprise level, critical business workloads. But when I was talking to Gartner, and that's why I brought this chart with me, they said, Ray, while you were doing other things, actually low code has become quite pervasive in the industry. And they said, hey, listen, we project that and you can see it on the slide behind me, that by 2026, actually, low code will be not just established in the industry, there are actually many more low code, organizations will have adopted more than one low-code solution in their practices. And what they mean with that is, obviously, low-code is now much more pervasive in not just low-code platforms like Mendix, but also if you go to ServiceNow, you go to Salesforce. Everybody has an element of low-code built into their software. And I think it's interesting. So low-code, when I started kind of in this game, 2016, was a bit maybe off to the side. Today, it's pervasive. You can find it pretty much everywhere, and I think also with most of you. The other thing worth talking about is the market, though, is a little confused about low-code. So I'm not sure when was the last time that you looked at the LCAP Magic Quadrant, LCAP being low-code application platform Magic Quadrant, but it may be hard to see for you. First of all, there are tons of dots in there. I think you can see that at least. But what you will see is that there's fragmentation in the interpretation of low-code. So meaning there are the enterprise low-code vendors like ourselves. It's good to see that we're at the top there. But my point is more that you see that low-code is, like I said earlier, becoming much more of a pervasive component in all sorts of various software offerings. And that's why you see Microsoft in the chart, not just from a Power Apps point of view, but also from what they actually do across the whole Azure suite. But you also see ServiceNow in there. You will see Salesforce in there. And I think together, we need to therefore be quite critical as to, okay, when we say low-code, what are we talking about? And are we using the right capability for the right task at hand, right? What is interesting, though, maybe one last point I will make here is, I think one of the differentiations that I'm trying to go after with Mendix is technology partnerships. And I think you see that on the slide behind me. And what I mean by that is we think about low-code being really a capability in a much broader enterprise architecture that you typically have to work with. And these days, what is the foundation of your enterprise architecture? It's really the capabilities that you get from the hyperscalers. And therefore, our partnership with AWS continues to be really an accelerator. But also interestingly, we see more and more clients building what I call data-heavy applications. And therefore, last week, is there some feedback or? Okay. Okay, sorry. So therefore, last week, I'm not sure if you've seen this, we announced a partnership with Snowflake because we see a lot of businesses actually building data-heavy applications. And so therefore, partnerships continue to kind of fuel the adoption of low-code in the industry. So therefore, our mission, will it change? No. But I think it's important that we talk a little bit about productivity, because like I show here, our mission is really rooted on better software faster. And I think the better part is interesting because better to me is not always the same as faster. And therefore, I think also the partnership that we have with SIG is key here. And we'll talk about that a little bit. So why productivity matters, I thought I would bring one customer example. I could have brought many. But this is some work that we do with Zurich. And I think what is interesting, it's productivity that we see getting a first application in production. Typically, so with Zurich, it's 12 weeks. It is actually a business-critical app that is actually screening financial transactions on kind of the genealogy of the money. As you know, banks have to do a lot of work these days to figure out where did the money come from and is it legit. And so, which is typically a good thing, actually. So therefore, getting this app out to production, good thing, quick. But then what is more interesting, and I think that's the other discussion that we can have this afternoon, is how do you turn productivity actually in business opportunity? And that's what you see with the little circle around it, where some of these applications, while they were being built quicker, they were also able to respond quicker to the market demand and actually capture a new business opportunity. And this is an application that they built to actually speed up insurance quotes, which included actually you taking a selfie, so they could actually fill out some of the, based on AI, they could say, oh, you're a male, 35, blah, 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 and actually speed up the insurance application. So interesting. Another example is Vivix, kind of linking, Luc, to what you said about AI. So Vivix is actually a Brazilian glass manufacturer. And what they figured out is that they have a lot of production issues producing glass, where they said the turnaround time of getting resolutions from basically the issue from the shop floor to the top floor and then return with answers back to the shop floor, it's just taking too long. And so what we did here is we built a Mendix application together with them where the Mendix app is actually integrated with Bedrock, with AWS Bedrock, so their Gen AI service. And it's a virtual engineer. So basically imagine you running around on the shop floor there at Vivix, and basically when you run into an issue, can be, for example, a quality issue on the produced glass, you can take a picture, and then there's a chat interface that can actually help you resolve, okay, what could be actually the quality issue here, and what is the root cause that maybe I should investigate. So it's interesting to see what people are trying to do here and how they become more productive. This clicker has a little bit of an issue. Okay. So the other thing about productivity to me is how do we facilitate collaboration? And so the other thing to me when I talk about productivity, it's not just about making the single developer faster. It's also how do you connect the business better to IT. And I think one of the things that you will see us further invest in is how do we make sure that this collaboration is as good as it can be. So for example, you can't maybe read this, but when it comes to business stakeholders, what we're trying to do is make the intake of ideas that can turn or that can become applications actually much faster. So there will be, I think some of you might already use Mendix portfolio management. It's a capability to basically structure your portfolio of apps and kind of get the business to even be closer to essentially the app factory that is powered with Mendix. A couple of things that I want to highlight here is you can turn actually productivity into a business case, right? And so what I'm showing here is many conversations that I have with clients. They say, hey, Ray, help me a little bit here to think about, okay, Mendix, low code, I get it, but how does it actually turn into real value? And so I think I wanted to show you this as an example that productivity truly still matters because ultimately it becomes part of a business case, right? And I think what is interesting is as we work with clients, we use what we call the value calculator to actually turn productivity into some real numbers so that people can figure out, okay, how do we justify the business transformation that we're going to make here. I already hinted at the partnership here with SIG, and I think what I'm seeing now is that the application landscape built with Mendix becomes more and more mature. So like I said, low code is more and more mature. We see bigger and bigger application landscapes. And then guess what's going to happen? You have to think about version 2 of your app. and how do you make sure that quality is at the level where it should be, and also security, right? I talked to some of you already. Security is a key concern, and how do we make sure that together we keep that application secure? And I think this will be a shift in the conversation. Low code was all about initial productivity, but I think it's going to be now a total cost of ownership discussion that we're going to have. And I think together with SIG and QSM, I think it will be kind of the next part of that conversation. So the last thing I'll talk about here is the quantum leap in productivity. So like I said, reflected a little bit on what still matters, and I think productivity still matters. So now it's about what's the next quantum leap. To me, it's two things. One is with a beautiful word called reuse, but here composability, and obviously AI. But I have one kind of opinion about AI, which I'll share at the very end here. So when we talk about composition, and I think I heard some of you already kind of going into this kind of a mental model, the way we think about composition is really next level of reuse. So think about it as the waterfall to agile transformation, reuse to composition. So meaning, how do you actually build business functions, not just as reusable code libraries, but how do you make these really as business functions reusable? Which means that there's a reusable user interface, a reusable, obviously, logic that goes with it, but also events, right? So you need to tie business events together. And so one of the next major waves that I think we're going to go push is really what Gartner would also call the composable enterprise. And some of the investment is already happening. So for example, I would say a year and a half ago, we added events to the Mendix platform so that you can actually do composition not just based on APIs, but also on business events. And I think it's something to think about. We see a lot of people actually taking advantage of these first steps. Swartz is the group owner of Lidl and quite a few places where even in California you can shop, which is interesting. But we see with decomposition also different ways of working. So a decentralized software development setup where you can actually decouple also how you build applications and how you actually turn these into the business experiences that people are looking for. So the last point I will make is the value of AI. So for Mendix, this really means two paths. One is what we call AI-assisted development. So how do we make the world of the app developer better? So think about Copilot, so Mendix Copilot. But also, and this is for the business typically much more interesting, is what we call AI-augmented applications. So how do you build applications where AI delivers you a new smart experience? Like, for example, I mentioned with Vivix. And I think as part of this, lots of enhancements that you can expect here, I would say in the next 12 months. I'm not going to go through all of them. But one of the ones that I will highlight is the Copilot experience that we're building out for Studio Pro. I'm not sure if this is going to play. So it's basically like Copilot, but this is actually not just focused on new things. What this is actually trying to do is if you have an existing microflow in Studio Pro, you can actually, if you didn't create it and you're trying to figure out what is this thing doing, it can actually give you an interpretation of, okay, what is this microflow doing? And is there a way to simplify it? So maybe there's a link here, Luke, that we need to think about. If you give us insights about, okay, maybe some technical depth, we can tie this now together, right? Where you can start asking Mendix Chat and essentially the Copilot experience of Studio Pro some questions around, okay, how can I simplify my application? Last slide that I'll talk about is, last week I was at the AWS Summit in Los Angeles, and I was a little shocked because I was thinking still that, we'll see how far this will go. At the LA Summit, there were 5,000 people, and most people that I talked to, they're already using AI at scale. And so this thing is real, and I think even also for Mendix, it's real. And to your point about AI, let's see how far it takes us. The last thing I'll say, though, is what put me in tears looking at Gen AI, and especially in the app development space, is it's generating code. And so it's, to me, a little bit unfortunate that we've started with large language models outputting source code. I think maybe as a community here, we need to think about, okay, how are we going to build large low-code models so that actually we can do model-based software development. So anyway, like I said, job security here, and it's good to see this new wave coming in. Last thing I'll say is, I think I'm a true believer that low-code and AI will actually come together. And what I mean by that is that people will want to build smart application experiences. And I think, therefore, I'm sure there will be, in a year from now, many more logos like this, where really we see low-code enabling smart applications where there's a component of generative AI. So with that, that's it. And then appreciate you listening to my story.
Thank you. Thank you, Raymond. Thank you very much, Raymond.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be going diving deeper into AI later this afternoon. But stick around.
Sure.
A question for you. In a nutshell, how can low code help us bridge the golden trio of quality, productivity, and security?
Maybe the easiest answer is that it's the hub in the middle. So I think it's, what I'm trying to do with Mendix, and hopefully it came kind of across, it's try to tie these things together. And why I'm saying it's a hub, it's because it's model-based. So it's the model that is tying all of these disciplines together. And I think that's why it's exciting. We're kind of integrating a lot of disciplines and trying to make it work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
we can feel your excitement and your passion. Not too many tears in your eyes.
No, not today. Not today.
Do we have any questions for Raymond? We're going to open it up to the audience for now. Put your hand up if you have a question. Anybody? Must be. So, yes, gentleman over there. Yeah. I'm going to grab a microphone, come running over to you. Or is Femke going to beat me too? I'm going to have a race with Femke. Sue's going to reach. Keep your hand up, please. So, oh, oh, no, I've got there first. Yes. There you go.
Great, thank you. The previous speaker talked a lot about the 6 smart score, I believe, in stars. Is that something that Mendix also has? Do you have this kind of scoring, or and why not?
So my simple answer is I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I do believe we do, but I think we don't advertise it the way that Luc was just talking about it. It's a great question. I'm not going to give you some made-up answers. I will check. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have this thing.
Oh, you got that. Okay.
No, which one is working? Anyway, the answer is yes, because QSM that he referred to is basically Sigrid that has the star system integrated into it. So yes.
Any other questions for Raymond at this point? No? Oh, you're
Everybody's
scratching your head. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Raymond.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.